Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel, 2BeLikeChrist. In the last video, we talked about history and a bunch of old guys with really weird names. In today's video, we're going to switch to science and we're going to talk about a bunch of creatures with really weird names. But first, we need to go to our Bibles to set up some context for this lesson. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul's dealing with a little bit of trouble in the Corinthian church. There's a problem with jealousy and envy, and maybe even people looking down on other people. You see, different people in the church had different gifts, different abilities, and that at times led them maybe to look down on another person or to see another person as less vital to the work of the church than they were. And on the flip side, it caused some people to look at other people and say, I'm jealous of what they have because I don't have that gift. I'll never be as great as them. And Paul is writing to kind of smooth out some of that tension. He writes to them and he tells them that really every part of the body, the church, is important. And he compares this to an actual physical body. Let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12 through 22 or so. I'll put it up on the screen for you. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body through many are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body. Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. Notice verse 14. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not the hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not the eye, I should not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body was an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. So you see what Paul's doing. He's comparing this to a physical body, and he says every part of the body is important. The ear can't say, I'm less important to the eye, because if the ear didn't work, you wouldn't be able to hear anything, and you would be handicapped. The eye can't say to the feet, well, because I'm not the feet, I'm not important. If you can't see, you can't use your feet properly to take you to the places that you need to go. So every part plays its role and completes the whole package. And he says the church is just like this. But before we talk about the church, I actually want to go to nature to find yet another example of a creature that displays this beautifully. And that creature's name is the SIPHONOPHORE. So now we must enter the realms of science. And I want to show you how the growth of the SIPHONOPHORE is very similar to the way that Paul says that the church should grow and develop. SIPHONOPHOREs are really beautiful creatures, and they come in all different types of shapes and sizes. But you've probably never seen one if you've just been to the beach. The reason for that is because they're very fragile and they break up very easily in the surf. So if you want to find one, you usually have to go out into deep ocean water. This right here is my very lifelike reproduction of a baby SIPHONOPHORE. Now, SIPHONOPHOREs begin as one tiny creature from a fertilized egg. And the way that these things grow is not like human beings. As human beings grow, they get bigger, right? But these are very different. Instead of getting bigger, they actually bud off and create more of themselves. What's very unique about this process, though, is that every single one of these new buds has a very specific job. This very first section of the SIPHONOPHORE may have the responsibility of transportation. So it enables the creature to move throughout the water. But when the SIPHONOPHORE buds off and creates a new section, this new section actually has a very different job. It is not able to walk and to transport the creature. Instead, this one may have the ability to eat. This is its mouth. This is its teeth. Very realistic, as I said. So these two, instead of transportation, they have the responsibility of consuming food. Then when this part of the SIPHONOPHORE buds off again, there's a new responsibility for these new buds. And it's not transportation, it's not eating, but it might be digestion. This is my stomach and all my food in my stomach. Beautiful. And then the process repeats. So we have more transportation, and so on and so forth. Now, you may say to me, wow, Luke, your drawing is very unscientific and you don't have a degree in marine biology. Why should I trust you? Well, you shouldn't. But I have some very good information from a Yale biologist. His name is Casey Dunn, and he runs the website SIPHONOPHORE.com. And he says about these animals, he says they don't live in a colony, but they arise by budding from the first pod, which itself is developed from a fertilized egg. He goes on to say, first, there is a high degree of specialization between the pods. Pods specialized for one function usually have well-developed features to serve that function, but lack the structures associated with the other functions. Each is dependent on the other to do what it can't do. That's directly from his website, and I'll link that down below. So you see what's happening here. Each of these pods, each part, is dependent on the others for the things that it can't do. This pod can travel through the water and has the means to do that. But if you can travel but you can't eat, you're not going to make it very far. And if you can eat but you can't digest, again, you're not really going very far. And so all of these parts are necessary for the whole thing to work and function and to live the way that it should. So you see a little bit of what Paul is trying to say when he's talking in 1 Corinthians 12. He says maybe the transporting pods look down on the digestion pods because they don't think their job is as important. But what happens when you get rid of these guys? Well, you can move through the water, you can eat, but none of those nutrients are ever going to come back and feed your body. So ultimately you're going to die. So they're extremely important. And he says, don't let anybody look down on you because you have a particular role that another doesn't have. Everyone in the church is dependent on those who can pick up where they are lacking. So think about the church and these two illustrations. Paul says, if you have a body but it's missing some of the primary senses because certain parts aren't there, then you're not going to have the most effective, most healthy body you could possibly have. Looking back at our friend the SIPHONOPHORE, we see that every part is dependent on another part. And in order to make that creature functional and as healthy and as productive as it possibly can be, every part has to be there. We come back to the church now and we look at this, and Paul says the same thing. He says every piece is important. You may look at yourself and think, I'll never be as great as so-and-so. I'll never be as great as this guy. My talents just aren't as great. God hasn't given me as much as this sister or this brother. And it's easy to look down on ourselves sometimes and to think we're not a valuable piece of the puzzle. Paul says, not true. On the flip side, don't be the person who looks at themselves and thinks, wow, I've been blessed with a lot of talents. These other people aren't nearly as important as me because of all the things that I can do or have done for the church. There's no place for either of those attitudes in the church. And when we realize that and realize the necessity and the dependency that we have on everybody, and that body is fitly joined together, as Ephesians chapter 4 tells us, that's when you have the healthiest, most functional church. Thanks again for watching the channel. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you're a marine biologist, comment down below and let me know what you think. If you like the video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the video with any of your friends or science geeks out there and see what they think. See you later.